Hey guys, welcome to Slurp. I'm Steve. This is Cash Game Cornerstones for MLB for Friday, May 27th. And finally, it's Friday! Yay! And we got a slate that doesn't suck. Yay! Alright, so let's get right into some pitching here since we actually got some guys to discuss. My top play on the night is Scherzer. He's the most expensive play on the board. Going up against the Cardinals, who had a okay-ish game against Joe Ross yesterday, but Ross did pretty well. He was one of the better pitchers on the slate anyway. And Scherzer is a much better pitcher than Ross is. So I like him even at 13.0 on DK and 10.9 on FanDuel. I think that's a pretty easy call on FanDuel. On DK, we need a second guy, and I'm not real. I got two guys, and I like one better than the other, but I'll give you the one I like less first. Partly because he's more expensive, and maybe you're thinking about him a little more, and that's DeGrom. He's had a really bad string of games, and I don't see why that's going to change here. It could. He rates well in my model. I'll give him that. But his recent performances aren't inspiring. I don't particularly love the matchup. 9.9 on DK, so he's not exactly cheap. 9.6 on FanDuel, definitely not, to me, worth the 1,300 savings to not go with Scherzer. So the guy I really like for your second pitcher on DK, and maybe this will convince you that I'm crazy. No, it's not that bad. Is Conley, Adam Conley. And he gets Atlanta. People have been playing way worse pitchers against Atlanta. So I don't have a problem with that play at all. Atlanta's best hitters are, mostly lefty. Really, I'm only thinking of Freddie Freeman. There are some other guys that are okay. I guess occasionally Frank Gore hits lefties well and stuff like that. But Conley's a good pitcher, and I like him a lot in this game. 7.5 on DK, 8.0 on FanDuel. Just forget about it there. But as a SP2 on DK, I'm a big fan of Conley tonight against Atlanta. So there's a bit of odd pricing on DK today, and I'm thinking what happened was the guys were priced with the plan for whoever was supposed to start today for the White Sox, which I'm guessing was probably Sale or maybe Quintana with the way they're priced. And then the game got rained out and they got pushed back, so it's Miguel Gonzalez again. So I think that's an excellent place to attack. So yesterday, Salvador Perez was, how much was he? I had him on my list. He was 4.1 on DK yesterday. He's 3.2 today. It is the exact same matchup. Be mindful of the weather. The game was canceled yesterday because of some very severe weather, so that's definitely something to consider. He's 3.4 on FanDuel. So the DraftKings reacts much more to the matchup. DraftKings prices guys to the matchup way more than FanDuel does. And so usually that's a good thing. Usually that's the right thing, in my opinion, as far as pricing goes. But in cases like this, where you see a guy is actually cheaper on DraftKings, it's usually because of some sort of slate change, something unanticipated by them. On FanDuel, I'm not such a big fan of that play. But Perez has been hot. Miguel Gonzalez is not a good pitcher. I like him a lot at that price, especially. We're back at Coors Field today, too, so that's pretty exciting. If you want some of that action, I like Tony Walters going up against Matt Cain, who also is not good. 3.1 on DK, so really not much of a discount over Perez, who I like a lot better. But 2.7 on FanDuel is a nice bargain price. And we're also back in action in Arizona today. Chase Field, which is one of the better targets for ballparks to hit in. And Wellington Castillo has been a pick of mine to hit a home run. Well, I guess maybe just yesterday, but he's been showing some signs for a while there. I like him a lot tonight. 4.1 on DK is hard to justify with Perez so cheap, especially in cash. But 2.9 on FanDuel is definitely doable. Sticking with that same underpriced Kansas City theme, we've got Hosmer versus Miguel Gonzalez, 3.5 on DK, 3.9 on FanDuel. You can see the disparity there. Love him at that price. But it's hard because I really love Carlos Santana against Mike Wright. another one of my pitchers I like to target. But Santana is expensive, kind of on both sites, but especially on DK. 4.5 on DK, 3.6 on FanDuel. But if you can fit him in there, I like that play a lot. It might be difficult, though, especially on DK, because I don't have a lot of cheap outfield plays for you today. But we'll get to that in a minute. So if you are looking cheaper, I also like Justin Smoke against Joe Kelly. 3.2 on DK, 2.7 on FanDuel. A nice bargain option on either site. So here's where pricing gets a little more interesting again. Also on FanDuel, they don't seem to be pricing the away team in Coors that well today, which is pretty weird because it's the Giants. It's not like they're a bad hitting team or anything. But just, for example here, we've got Joe Panik going up against Chatwood. Chatwood's not a bad pitcher, by the way. He's probably much better than you think he is, and certainly than his reputation is. But it is in Coors Field, and the Giants are a very good hitting team. So it's not a situation we need to avoid, just something to be a little mindful of, also for future when he's not in Coors Field. The Panik, 4.9 on DK. It's expensive, but I don't mind Coors Field being priced up like that. 3.4 on FanDuel. Doesn't seem right to me. Except that I like to put him in my lineup at that price. I think that's an easy cash pick there on FanDuel. But we also got some cheap guys in Kipnis, who again on DK is just expensive. Going up against Mike Wright, it's probably merited. But he's 4.8 on DK, 3.6 on FanDuel. I would still just stick with Panik, although on DK, if you're paying up, choosing between those two is tough. But I also really like Derek Dietrich going up against Perez of the Brewers, William Perez, I want to say. And he is only 3.4 on DK, a nice bargain option there. He's 3.3 on FanDuel, which is like, this doesn't relatively make any sense at all. So I like him. He's another guy that I really like to hit a home run soon. I was hoping for one last game, whenever that was, yesterday, a couple days ago. But he did come through with I think 2 hits, one of which was a double. So it was right there, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit more of that today. And then also another cheap guy, especially cheap for FanDuel, is Gosselin for Arizona. If he gets in the lineup, they get Friedrich, who's not a great pitcher either, and Chase Field is a great place to hit. 3.2 on DK, I'd probably just go Dietrich there. 2.1 on FanDuel, though, if you need the bargain. That's not a bad price to get it. Third base is kind of rough on DK, especially pricing-wise. Dietrich and Gosselin are both second base, third base eligible, so I do not mind using one of them here if need be. But if you have money to pay up, it's never a bad idea to get Nolan Arenado in your lineup against a bad pitcher in Coors Field. 5.5 on DK reflects that. 4.4 on FanDuel, to a degree does too, but still a lot cheaper there. A nice option on DK only is Brandon Drury against Friedrich. He's 3.9 on DK. He's an outfielder on FanDuel, so nope, not interested. And then if you need an even cheaper option on DK, Jose Ramirez, getting in on this Mike Wright action with the rest of Cleveland there. 3.5 on DK, 3.2 on FanDuel. Not interested on FanDuel. But on DK, I think that's a pretty interesting price, especially depending on where he's batting. Sometimes he bats ninth. I don't really love that. But if you need a punt play, that's not a bad one, although I'd probably move one of Dietrich or Gosselin to third base before I did that. And FanDuel, of course, just offers up a very nice, beautiful, easy play. Matt Duffy. He hasn't been great lately, but he's in Coors Field, and he's 3.3, which is crazy. And he's 4.7 on DK for comparison. Much less interested there, although it's not a bad play. It's just a more expensive one. But on FanDuel, I mean, that price is just a bargain. Hey, guess what? There's bargains on Giants in Coors Field on FanDuel. Brandon Crawford is kind of an insane 5.4 on DK. That's a little bit much. I mean, he is a hard-hitting left-handed shortstop. in Coors Field against a right-handed pitcher who's not an elite pitcher anyway. But he's 3.8 on FanDuel, which is just awesome. I mean, that's put him in your lineup. On DK, like, I wouldn't, man, I can't pay that on DK. I mean, it's just, that's so much. And you got guys like Zach Cozart, who's going up against Davies. And Davies is giving up 56% hard hit rate over his last 15. One of two guys giving up more than 50%. That's pretty ridiculous. And Cozart can definitely hit with some power. I mean, he's not the biggest power guy. He's not like Crawford, but he's hit a couple homers, and Davies could certainly help with that. 3.5 on DK is a nice price. 3.6 on FanDuel. Like, are you kidding me? Go Crawford for 200 more. And then also kind of a midpoint there, although way closer to the low end. VR against Lamb. VR had a home run last night, which was pretty frustrating for me because he was one of the only people not in my Brewers stack. It was one of those kind of nights. Pretty much the entirety of Houston outside of my stack hit a home run. That was fun too. But VR is 3.7 on DK, 3.8 on FanDuel, which again, like Crawford, no, I don't understand, people. I don't understand FanDuel. What is with your pricing? So Crawford on FanDuel, I can't get away from that, but I can't pay that price on DK. So one of Cozart or VR for me. Here's a little spoiler on the outfield. It's mostly Coors Field. That's the one place where DK is not like crazy pricing the Rockies for some reason. I mean, Carlos Gonzalez has struggled, but he's definitely fighting his way back. And he's got Kane back at home in Coors. 4.5 on DK doesn't seem enough to me. 3.5 on FanDuel is borderline insulting. I don't see myself having a FanDuel cash lineup that doesn't have him in it. Blackman, again, is a much better deal on DK. He's 4.9 on DK, so he's expensive, don't get me wrong. But he's 4.5 on FanDuel, so in comparison, I would take Carlos Gonzalez on FanDuel for sure. I like Blackman a lot, though, even at that price. Outfield is a good place to spend up today of any cash you have left over after getting your pitchers in there. But you might do a little better even by going with Parra, assuming he's in the lineup, but he usually is. And it's lefty-righty matchup, so sounds good. 4.1 on DK, 3.4 on FanDuel. I don't hate going with him and Gonzalez on FanDuel, or on DK. But if I had to pick, I'd go with Gonzalez on FanDuel for sure. And there's some guys that are just. The price on FanDuel makes them playable. The price on DK does not. Tomas is right on that borderline. Yasmani Tomas for Arizona. Going up against Friedrich back in his home park. Especially depends on where he is in the batting order, at least for cash. They moved him down to 8th. And, he hit a home run in the 8th slot. So, that's not a terrible thing. But it's not great for cash because it might limit his at-bats a little bit. And we don't want that, so hopefully he's moved up. Especially we don't want that from a 4.7K player on DK. He's only 3.4 on FanDuel. Makes him much more interesting if you're getting away from Coors a little bit or don't want all Coors. 4.7 is tough, though. But, well, no, not for DK. But don't you have any cheap outfielders? No, not on DK, I don't. On FanDuel, I have some more options for you. Denard Span. Against Chatwood and Coors, it's not terrible. 3.9 is a great price. He's like 5.2 on DK. It's insane. I cannot bring myself to pay that for Denard Span. Similar story. Ian Desmond, love what he's been doing lately. Going up against John Neese, great matchup there. But he's 5.1 on DK. Just bonkers prices. 4.1 on FanDuel. He's doable there. Another guy that you could mix in with some Coors Field guys for your cash lineups. And lastly, the one kind of cheap option, like really cheap anywhere, that I have to offer you is Adam Duvall again against Davies. I don't hate Bruce either. It's just a pricing thing. They're more than I would pay for them. And Duvall at like 4K or so is really more than I want to pay for him on DK, but on FanDuel is only 2.9. Makes for a nice bargain option there. That's really all I got in terms of cash options. Unfortunately, I will not be able to be in the expert chat today. I'm sad. I really love the expert chats. But I will try and post up some Dong Finder picks in the Slurve chat. So make sure you come on by slurve.com, free to sign up, and get some home run picks for tonight. And hope these cash game picks have helped you. It's the first slate that I really feel good about playing cash on in the last 2 or 3, I forget now. But so that's a big help to us, and I hope this has been a big help to you. Good luck.